Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Books on Tour. I've been away so long I almost forgot how to say it. It appears we're entering into our 9th season of being here in the Danvers studio and enjoying every book I read. My premier guest for this season is Mr. Jim Haskell, and he's written a book that I thoroughly enjoyed, 2/10. It's about the Appalachian Trail and you and the people you met and the animals. And how long? 21 years from
21 years.
beginning to end.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
And it's a great book, and you just told me that it was done in collaboration with your brothers.
Correct. Well, yeah, he was he was the person that I first talked to about having the book or writing the book, and he had already written a book, and he's been a journalist for about 40 years or so. So anyway, so we talked about the book writing process and what it would take in order to write the book.
Did he make you do an outline
He made
like
me-
English class?
Not quite like English class, but what he did make me do, well, to backtrack just a little bit, the first thing that I did is I didn't keep a journal through my 21 years.
Wow.
So, a lot of folks who are hiking, especially if they're, hiking it all in one year, will, religiously keep a journal of what happened during the day. and what
Especially if they
thought.
find their body on the trail.
Yeah, exactly, right. Kind of a handy thing to have. Well, I didn't do that. So the first concern that I had was I knew I had all these stories in my mind, but I didn't really know if I had enough to be able to write a book. So what my brother suggested, so I talked to my brother about that, and he suggested just sitting down and just writing notes randomly, not worrying about grammatical structure or anything or about storyline.
A catharsis.
Or anything. Exactly, but just to almost recreate that journal from scratch. And so I started that process. It took me about 5 months. I had about 160 pages of single-spaced notes from 21 years of hiking the trail.
But it would have been easier to keep a journal.
It would have been just a little bit easier to keep a journal, but anyway, but it was also then a really good experience because it almost made me relive the whole thing all
To pat
over
yourself
again.
on the back when you're finished?
Oh, well, yeah, and but then of course it was just beginning. Then it's how do you translate that into a book? But the notes then became the basis for the book, and if anything, I probably shelved as many stories, or maybe twice as many stories, as actually ended up in the book. So I could have written the book with a whole different set of stories, and hopefully would have been as compelling. But chose the stories that I thought were interesting and told the story of the trail and the story of my life from a number of different aspects.
You lived a life.
Exactly.
You had a family,
Yeah.
marriage, a child.
Divorce before
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
To climb the Appalachian Trail with your first wife, and she didn't come in no more.
Exactly. Yeah.
But-
Decided maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Yeah. Exactly.
And then you fell in love on the trail.
Yep.
And you crashed and burned.
Yep.
Did you ever count how many actual days over the years you were on the trail?
Yeah. And actually, let me see. I can. In fact, I've got a graph at the very end.
Yes, I thought that
and
was
it is
fascinating.
236.
Very good.
So
I
it took me
thought that graph
236
at the back, I should have read it, I guess. Oh, pardon me.
That's
But
perfect.
it brought it even together more. Now, I think you should tell people, before we go any further, that why it took you 21 years.
Sure. Well, let me first talk about why I hiked the Appalachian Trail just in general, and kind of my initial experience with the Appalachian Trail. I'm the youngest of 4. There's 7 years between me and my next sibling, so let's just say I was the mistake in the family. But my family was very good about incorporating me and everything. I was just one of the kids. Until I was 9 years old, and my father decided that he and the older siblings were going to go, and they were going to climb Mount Katahdin, which is the highest mountain in Maine, and is also the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail. And I was left behind. I ended up spending it with an aunt and uncle, and
Not
kind
being
of a favorite.
babysat, but visiting.
Visiting, but I still knew I was being excluded from something that was really cool. And then they came back, and they had one of those little Kodak Instamatic cameras, and those pictures got developed. and I saw the
Grand
terrain above tree line, and it might as well have been taken on the moon. I mean, it was just amazing to see that. And so and at the top there's the sign that says, this is that Baxter Peak is the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, which goes 2,100 miles to Georgia. And for a kid growing up in rural Maine, Georgia might as well have been in, I don't know, Lithuania. I mean, it was a place that was very, very far away. And the idea that you could travel that by foot, you could walk it, just astounded me. So I just became really fascinated by the idea of the trail, and I'd go to the old Rand McNally Atlas, and I would find the trail, and I would trace it through the various states and whatever, and just became fascinated with the trail. Always thought that I was going to hike the trail sometime in my early 20s or whatever, kind of one of those things I would do after college. But by happenstance, I got married pretty quickly out of college, and had a career and buying a house and kind of all of those things that you start to do. Yeah, exactly. You got it. And so by my late 20s, I realized, geez, this is something that just isn't going to be possible for me. I'm not going to be able to hike the trail. And then my first wife and I happened to be camping in Gifford Woods State Park, which is right near Mount Killington in Vermont. It was a Labor Day weekend. And there was a thru hiker who was coming through. And thru hikers are folks who hike the trail all in one year. So that's kind of the definition of what a thru hiker is.
All in 1 year,
all
or
in
all
1
at
year.
one time?
So technically it's all in 1 year.
Wow.
So if you do it within a 12-month period, then you're a thru hiker. So you can go off, but you have to finish it within that 12-month within that 12-month period. So anyway, so he was thru hiking, and he was having a bad day. And we got talking to him, and he said, if I had to do this all over again, I'd do 100 miles, 200 miles a year and enjoy it. Because at this point, I just want to get the thing over with.
It was an effort. It'd take the fun got taken out of it.
The fun had long since
just like the
gone
corporate
by.
world, you had a deadline.
Yeah, exactly right. And he just wanted to get the thing done with. And that was a light bulb moment for me. It was, okay, I can't do it. I can't take off those 6 or 7 months that you have to in order to be able to hike the entire trail. But I can take off, a week here, a couple weeks there or whatever, and hike different sections of it and enjoy it. And so that was a light bulb moment. 1990, so that was 1989. In 1990, my wife and I started hiking the trail. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't last much beyond that, but I continued hiking the trail, and I finished it in 2010. So it was over 21 hiking seasons.
Right, but you didn't start in Georgia,
Nope.
which a lot of people will do.
That's correct, yeah.
And you took it where you happened to be.
Right. Yep.
Where you could within the time constraints of your life.
Exactly right. So what I tell people is the way that I hiked the trail made sense to no one except for me.
Jigsaw puzzle.
Exactly right. And so it was piecing all of it. So the northern half, which roughly goes to a midpoint in Pennsylvania, the northern half. By and large, I did long weekends. Sometimes I would take off 4 or 5 days to do some of the sections in Maine, some of the longer sections in Maine. But I would be able to do those sections over a weekend or 2 or 3 days or whatever. So I could just kind of fit in a quick hike here and there. The south I did much more systematically because I had to travel down there. I live in Massachusetts now, and so that was a day plus travel. So I would go down there and I would hike a week and then come back and then go back next year and hike next week. So it was more systematic in the south. It was a hodgepodge in the north.
But I often think when we travel a highway, what am I missing? I used to travel Route 1 to Maine.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And while this is more expedient,
yeah,
if you can bear the tolls, you don't get the flavor of the area.
Right, exactly.
So in hiking your way, you got to go into a town and have a meal and grab a shower and understand. And I love that you included the history of the Appalachian Trail, because I think every one of us have heard about it.
Yeah.
And that's a major. The Indians didn't leave it like that.
No.
Somebody had a dream.
Right. Yep.
And somebody had to work very hard, diligently, and paid the price for it.
Right.
And finally got to see the fruition. What is it, 11,000 people a year?
No, not so about 17,000 people have completed the trail. At the time that I did it, was about 11,000. So it gives you an idea how popular it is. So about 1,000 people a year are now completing the trail. And they're about, but about, not meaning to throw out a bunch of statistics, but only about 1 in 4 actually finishes it if they start. So about 4,000 people a year start, and about 1,000 people a year
Do you
finish.
get a certificate at the end
Yep.
with a gold star?
I'm not sure if it has a gold star, but you do. Although it's interesting, it's all in the honor system. So I mean, anyone can go in.
Big Brother is not out there checking.
Exactly right. But the Appalachian Trail Conservancy will send you a letter saying that you have officially completed the Appalachian Trail. Congratulations, and yeah, absolutely. So
now,
one of my prized possessions.
Cool. Now explain the title. I love it.
So 2/10 was my trail name, or is my trail name. And trail names are names that hikers, pretty much every through hiker takes on, and kind of the more serious section hikers like
they're
myself.
Recognizable to one another, sort of like CB radio handles.
Absolutely, very similar to a CB radio handle, and in fact, really become. For hikers who are on the trail, really become their name versus their given name. There have been instances where 2 through hikers will be hiking together for weeks, and only know each other by their trail names, have no idea what their given names are.
And that can be embarrassing. I was talking to my local pastor, and 2 of my friends from CB radio walked up to me, and of course I had to introduce them. And I didn't know the name.
Had no name, had no idea whatsoever.
Father, I'd like you to meet Head Bolt and Gun Runner. and he looked at me, But you do, it's burnt in. Even if you send them a Christmas card with their real name,
absolutely,
that's the name that comes up.
Right, exactly.
But anyway, how'd you get 2/10?
So anyway, 2/10 came about. So my niece and I, and my niece is about 18 years younger than I am, and she ended up hiking about 250 miles of the trail in total with me. So anyway, so we were hiking up something called Chestnut Knob, which is about a 4,000-foot mountain in Virginia. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was particularly out of shape. I had stopped running or doing kind of any exercising a few months before that hike. So I was out of shape. I was, weighed more than I had probably ever weighed and whatever. And I just struggled up this hill. I was stopping every 1/10 of a mile, just, and it wasn't really that steep. It just was taking everything out of me to try to get to the top of it. So finally, I get to the top, and we were staying at this stone shelter. It had taken us much longer to get up there than we had originally thought, because I was so slow. So it was getting dark. I'm pulling stuff out of my pack to try to make dinner, and
the weight of the pack is very important.
The weight is extremely important, right? And so I had and when I hiked with her, we had a 3-person tent that she and I would sleep in typically, and that was on the side of my pack. But inside, as I'm pulling things out, I feel at the bottom this thing, and I know immediately as I'm putting my hand on it exactly what it is.
And why you couldn't make the mountain.
And why I was having so much trouble getting up this mountain. And it was my 1-person tent that I had failed not to take out beforehand, that I then carried up this mountain when I was out of shape and exhausted and everything else.
Which added how much poundage?
Probably about 4 pounds.
Which seems nothing, but on top of 30,
yeah, exactly, is a lot, exactly.
And yet you met a lady camper, a lady hiker, BB. She was a through camper.
Right.
And her pack weighed 12 pounds?
I think 18, right, yeah. And that's a very and now full disclosure, although BB is based on a number of other hikers that I met. BB is fictional, so the two.
So she can't tell about the hot tub incident.
Yeah. Actually, and this is a secret. This is because you're the first person to actually bring it up. I'll give you a little inside clue here. The hot tub incident happened to me.
I didn't think it happened to me.
Well, no, but anyway, but I have the hot tub incident happening to BB, but it's actually something that happened to me. But anyway,
I said you were a very good writer, and it came through.
Oh, good. Anyway, but yeah, so BB is of kind of a different generation of hiker, and I put her character in there. To talk about that, and she's carrying an 18-pound pack with everything that she needs in order to be out on the trail for 4 days. However, she doesn't pack a tent, so she depends on being able to stay in shelters and whatnot. And the situation in the book is that she's not able at the night that Rex and I, another fictional character, and I meet her. We're not at a shelter, and she has to sleep out.
And it was cold.
And it was cold, exactly.
So a hot tub looked pretty good.
I'm sure a hot tub would have looked very good to her at the time, but there was none available. So.
But you met a lot of different characters and a lot of different people, and to hike alone, it's not the safest place in the world.
I disagree with you, but anyway.
Good, but it's been getting some negative publicity.
Oh, absolutely it does, yeah.
And unfortunately, that's all you hear.
Right.
So I'm glad you wrote the book, and I hope people that read the negative publicity will read Two Tenths.
Right.
Because you didn't, other than the bear, and he was a gentleman, he left.
Yep, he let me alone, so.
Now, did you take a camera with you? Did you take pictures of any of this?
I took a camera sometimes. I didn't take a camera all of the time. And part of the reason why is I am probably the world's worst photographer because I get to a vista and I want to be able to take a picture of that.
And not lose it.
And it just never translates.
I had a friend who had one of the first video cameras, and he so diligently did his son's wedding. And of course, the camera failed, and he never really participated in his son's wedding because he was trying so hard to keep it on tape for them for posterity. Which I thought was a shame.
Yeah, it is. It is. So my wife now, and we've only been married 25 years, but
it's a good start.
Yeah, really, exactly. I think it may last. Anyway, she's the photographer, and if we're hiking, I'm seeing the big picture. She'll see a little flower coming up amongst some rocks or whatever, and we'll go and she'll spend 15 minutes taking pictures of that flower.
A lady slipper? You're not kidding. You don't see too many of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's white ones. I've lived my whole life. I haven't seen a white one yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some beautiful stuff out there that you don't, and you never will see. There's a reservoir in the adjoining community, and my husband took me up there so I could enjoy fields of lady slippers.
Right.
And the people that run the reservoir in their fancy pants and their fancy, and they run, and they never see the ladies. What a shame.
Yeah. So hiking with her has made me appreciate the minutia. So different people see the trail in different ways, and it really took me hiking with her to recognize that.
Well, every good woman is there to help a man learn what he should learn, don't you know?
Absolutely.
Did she appreciate the book? Did she critique it?
Yes, she did. She didn't read it until fairly late, so it was pretty much hardwired as it is now. It was a slightly earlier version that she read. And I think she did that on purpose, just to allow me to tell the story the way that I wanted to without.
I think you should change that. That didn't happen. It didn't go down like that. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
I write, my daughters can't believe that I get published without them criterion and checking. I do, 40-mile run-on sentences, and it still gets published.
Yeah.
And they can't believe it. We can't possibly cover everything, and I can't believe that little book, 2/10, has so much information in it.
Oh, good.
But we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and you're going to read us what you consider to be a comical section, a interesting section.
I guess an interesting section,
interesting.
Yes. Right.
And give everybody a little flavor of the book. So this section is from a hike that I did in the Smokies, and I had actually gotten up to the ridge, so I was hiking along a fairly flat section. It was a very still day. It was kind of cloudy, and it was an easy section of the trail, so I just kind of got into this daydreamy state, and then all of a sudden there's a tremendous sound, and I jerked my head up. I jerked my head up quickly as the sound ripped through the still mountain air. A fully grown male black bear was clinging to the trunk of a huge spruce tree about 25 feet ahead of me. The tree was right next to the trail. The bear's butt was hanging just a few feet above the ground, and his front claws were about 5 feet below the first main branches. This bear was very big. He was also very unhappy. He roared at me again, not quite so loudly as the first time, but with enough gusto to make it perfectly clear that he was not pleased that I was so close to him. The daydreamy state I had been in a couple of seconds earlier had totally evaporated. I was now intently focused on the fact that I was standing very close to a very large, pissed-off bear. I instantly knew that I was in a great deal of danger. What I did during the next couple of minutes could very well determine whether I lived or died. A million things rushed through my head. Fortunately, Donna and I had spent 4 days at McNeil River, a bear sanctuary on the Alaska Peninsula, during our honeymoon 2 years earlier. A group of us spent several hours each day watching the bears catch and eat salmon at the river. Those were brown bears, considerably larger than the black bear that confronted me today. But bears are like hurricanes. They're all dangerous if you're close to them, no matter the size or category. And this bear was certainly big enough to be dangerous. I tried to remember everything I'd learned about bears at McNeil. I knew that one thing was working in my favor. Bears generally don't hunt humans. There's a theory that most predators don't like to eat people because we're not very appetizing. Luckily, we don't taste like chicken. But that doesn't mean we can't trigger a bear's predator instinct. So I might get mauled to death, but at least there'd be something of a corpse left if I totally screwed this up. That was comforting. What I remembered from McNeil was that there are 4 things that typically trigger a bear's killer instinct. The first 2 are interfering with the food source, such as trying to wrestle a fish away from a bear, or posing a threat to a female's cubs. Fortunately, I was not violating rules 1 and 2 right now. The third is entering into a bear's personal space. You don't want bears to think that you're close enough to pose a threat to them. Their personal space can vary considerably depending on the terrain, species, and territoriality of any given bear, but 25 feet is way too close under any circumstances. This bear's roars had let me know that he thought I was too close for his comfort. The fourth thing is running away. I knew that bears are incredibly fast for their size. You can't outrun them. If I were to start running back down the trail, the bear would consider me prey. His instinct would be to barrel after me, bring me down, and clamp his jaws around my neck. Unfortunately, there's an inherent contradiction between rules 3 and 4. If a bear is pissed off because you're in his personal space, your first inclination is to put some distance between you and the bear as quickly as possible. But if you move away too quickly, the bear may chase you down anyway. It doesn't make much sense, but bears aren't required to pass Logic 101. I also remembered from my McNeil experience that bears don't have great eyesight. They have trouble seeing things at a distance that aren't moving. So the first thing I did was freeze in my tracks and try not to move a muscle. I tried not to breathe. I even managed to keep my knees from shaking. I helped to make the bear forget I was there by standing completely still.
I did not move for several minutes until the bear seemed to lose interest in me and resumed climbing the tree. Then, when I thought he wasn't looking, I very slowly moved my right foot behind me. I shifted my weight ever so slightly so that my entire body moved back a couple of inches. But that was enough to get the bear's attention, and he quickly focused on me again. He let out a low growl. I became a statue for another couple of minutes.
Now they have to get the book to find out if you lived through it. I don't see any marks.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler
right
alert,
now,
right.
I lived through it.
In that paragraph, in the big rock that you had no other option other than sliding down on your belly.
Yeah.
If anybody's ever done a belly flop,
Yeah.
Accelerated over time, by all means, I think we could talk for another hour and enjoy every minute of it. Your humor is much appreciated, and you write what I like to read.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Are you going to do another one?
Thinking about it, haven't started anything yet. We'll see.
Well, we'll reserve a space. Please bring it back to us.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure, Veronica.
That's it for Off the Shelf Books on Tour. I'm your host, Veronica Andrews. The book is 2/10 by Jim Haskell, who accomplished the Appalachian Trail. Congratulations.